Ladies and gentlemen, I am Arif Kasana from Swedish capital Stockholm. Very warm welcome to my channel. Today I have very special guest. She's a writer, she's a teacher, and she have worked in different aspects. She will explain. And previously you may have watched her two interviews with me at my channel, one in English, one in Swedish. But in today's interview, we'll talk mainly about the incident that happened in Örebro on 4th February. We have different questions and we wanted to know how the Swedish people think about this incident, and there are many questions. So, very warm welcome to Ann-Charlotte Andersson. Thank you very much for your time, and you have worked very well. You have written very good book, Svenska på jobbet. The people who come to Sweden, they want to learn the Swedish language.
Yes, it was not 100% me, it was Gunnar Bergström.
Yeah, so you two people wrote this book, and then you are also the job coach, and you worked in the prisons, and you have very good family background. Your mother was first the health secretary, and then she worked as a teacher for the Swedish language, and your father was had a very good position in Swedish military, and he was the head of United Nations mission in the Cyprus.
Yes.
So wonderful background you have, and yourself, you have visited many countries, and you are teaching the Swedish language about 50 years.
Yes.
And you have very close contact with the Pakistani, Indian, and Bangladeshi immigrants. And you know the problems of the immigrants, and this particular incident happened in Örebro. We all immigrants feel a bit threatened. So first of all, I will ask you, you delivered a very good speech when you came to my book launch on 8th of February here in Stockholm, Kista. My book about Sweden, my second homeland, I say Vatnesani. So you delivered a good speech about the background of immigration and about the Örebro. Can you please explain shortly to my audience?
What is important is that to know that Sweden has been without any war for about since 1811. So that's a very long time. We had some small conflicts with Norway and also with Finland, but not in any real war. And it was due to that we got adopted person from France who was a marshal under Napoleon, who was adopted to the Swedish royal family. They had no children. So he was a peacemaker for the whole Europe against Napoleon, who liked to fight a lot and make wars, and also against Russia. And nowadays we have the same problem, more or less, with Russia. So that's that. That is about the peace. And then if we come to school, it's so important to know how to read and write. And then when we come to the democracy, we had democracy in Sweden since 1919 for all men, and from 1921 for all women. So one can say more or less that since 1921, every person has his own vote. The system before was that the rich people, the people with money, and who had maybe from the noble class, usually we do like this. But nowadays they are not like that. They are quite humble people. They had more votes. So we also have the democracy. And finally, about the economical freedom of all men and women. I mean, men were always working in one way or another. And of course, women were working. But maybe they were working at home before, or maybe work for voluntary work. But since 1960, when we got the day nurseries for everyone, all the women were allowed and were able to go out to work. So since that time, all women has also the economical freedom. But still, we have a problem in the Swedish society. I didn't have that problem, but that women get 30%. 30% of all women get lower salary than men, around 3,000 crown less. If, for example, you are a scientist, I'm a teacher, or maybe not a nurse, but like a scientist, an engineer, or a teacher. So women usually get 3,000 crown less than a man for the same job.
Even right now?
Yeah, even right now. Yeah. 30% of all women still.
We'll talk about shortly the history of immigration to Sweden. So do you know when the first Muslim came to Sweden?
Yeah, it was in 1898. His name was Ibrahim. He came from Russia. He was a businessman, and he was very successful. He lived in the Östermalm, the flashy area, where also the richest person in Sweden is living, Jacob Wallenberg. So he was doing fine.
Do the immigrants have some positive impact to the Swedish society?
Yeah, if we go back to 500 years, we have the Romani people coming here, and they still have trouble here in the different ways, because, you know, people had a lot of bad thoughts about them, but now they are getting better and better. Sometimes they don't use their names. They use Spanish-speaking names, so nobody knows that they are Romani people. And then we have the Jewish people. They came in around 70, 72 something. Some people were welcomed by the Swedish King Gustav III. It was one guy called Aaron Isaac. He was from Berlin. He was very good at making coins. He was a technical person. And with him, he invited 9 other people. And then he could open the first synagogue in Sweden. But of course, Sweden was trying to convert him to become a Christian, but he was not interested. And then we have this Muslim guy that no one knows about. I'm sure that you didn't know about him.
No, yes.
I mean, nobody talks about him, but he was the first one. And of course, I also didn't know about him until I investigate about it. And then if we come to the refugee situation in Sweden, so there were some people coming in 1925 from Denmark to Sweden, but more or less Denmark is Sweden, more or less. So, and then we have to wait until 1939 when the war was going on, the Second World War. And then we have some refugees, Jewish refugees, and also some other refugees. And then in 1950, we have the Hungarian people. And from 1960, when we needed to develop our factories, because we were never in war, we were a neutral country. We were not in the NATO or something.
That was a good policy during the war.
Yes, yes.
It developed the Sweden. Right now, what do you think? How many percentage of immigrants living in Sweden?
It's 1.7 approximately, 1.7 millions.
1.7
and in Stockholm,
million.
and in the big Stockholm's län, we have 1.7 million people. So if you think about Stockholm, from Norrtälje to Södertälje, all these people that are living now in Stockholm, all of them are not immigrants. You are an immigrant, I'm not. So people like us, 1.7 is the same amount of people that are living in Stockholm. And this amount of people, 1.7, was the same people approximately. It was about 1.5 million people, Swedish people, who became immigrants in USA.
Yeah, so exactly it's the same.
So it's more or less the same.
It come to the incident, very sad incident happened in Örebro on 4th of February. What are your feelings as a Swede?
First of all, you know, I want to say that it didn't happen anything to my family, because I visited Örebro since I was 12. My uncle, my aunt, and my 2 cousins are living there. My uncle is dead. So, but they have also children. And I was calling my son. We are living in Stockholm. I am not working in the school in Örebro, because I worked in schools in Stockholm for 48 years, everywhere. And then I'm also happy that you, Milad, my son, is not going to school in Örebro, because then this could have happened. And finally, I also want to say that I was thinking about my cousin's children, that they are not big enough to go to this school. So, you know, first of all, you think about your family. Secondly, it's a very nice city. It's a very nice city. And now we have one minister who is the party leader of the Liberals. He comes from Örebro, for example. So he went there. He was maybe the first guy who went there from the government to visit, because this is his city. And I think he also have gone to this school. He has attended this school, you know. So it becomes very close to him. That's one thing. And the strange thing, I will not say funny thing, because it's not funny at all. The strange thing is that the government in 1811 decided to take one person, an immigrant. They didn't find any Swedish people who could be the new king of Sweden, because the king didn't have any children. He lost 2 children who died at an early age. They were thinking about the Danish prince, but when he was on his way on his horse, at that time people were riding on horses, he fell off the horse and he died. And some people said that maybe he was poisoned, but we don't know up to now. But maybe he was poisoned, but maybe we didn't want to have a Danish prince. So then they were thinking, who can we take? Then they were thinking about several marshals that were working with Napoleon, because Napoleon was a very strong person.
Okay.
So from that time, they decided in Örebro, in one meeting, that they will take this Bernadotte, Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte, Carl Johan Bernadotte, to Sweden. And now the king, the grandchildren, I think it's the sixth generation or seventh generation after him. He came in 1811. He came 214 years later to the same Örebro, where his ancestor was decided that.
Okay, people ask, right now the authorities say they did not find any strong motive and his ideological relationship with some political and other groups. But how is it possible a person enters to an educational institution and there he opened a fire and killed 10 people? Was not there some motive and was not there some ideological thinking in his mind? What do you think?
Yeah, as a teacher, I've been studying and looking at all these programs and the news about this guy. When you see his face, I'm quite good at judging people because I've been working for 48 years. My youngest student was 3 years old in the preschool, and the oldest one I had was 95 from Chile. So usually when I see people, I can judge them quite well, what kind of personality they have, because we becomes like psychologists, more or less, as teachers. We must know how the students are feeling to be able to give them the best information. So when you see his photo, I was very surprised because he doesn't look bad at all. He looks more or less like an angel for me. But of course he was not an angel. That is first thing, that you can't see on him that he will do such a crime. Secondly, I heard also on the news that he attended primary school and he didn't get any grade in any subject. And I think, in these 48 years, I have never heard about any student. I mean, whatever you have, if you have some diagnosis, dysfunctional things, I mean, usually you get some point in some subjects, like no grades, no level. He left with empty paper. He didn't learn anything. Maybe he learned something, but he didn't get any grade. So this is, I have never heard in this time. I wonder how it's possible. And of course, I'm thinking, what happened to him? Why didn't he succeed at all? What kind of teachers did he have? What help did he get? But anyway, this is the case. And then I also heard from his neighbor that he doesn't want to say hello. He doesn't want to have any contact in the laundry place, for example. So I think this is a very lonely person, has no friends. He also changed his name. Usually when people change their name, it's because they want to hide some secrets. Maybe they have been involved in something. Okay, he didn't have any criminal records. But I think he must have had some psychological problem. And maybe even he had some diagnosis. Because it's not possible that you can commit such a crime.
But why a psychological problem entered to the place where all immigrants were reading? Why not he went to some other place or centrum or he can do this like this? So people ask this question.
That is a very good question that you are asking me about, because if you want to kill a nation like Sweden, we have a lot of democracy, we have money, we have education, we have most of the things here. I mean, this is one of the best countries. I don't remember which place we are now, if it was 7 or 14, but we have a lot of democracy here, and it's a very good country.
He was jobless from 2018, and how he managed to have 4 weapons, they are very costly, and how the authorities gave him license for 4 weapons. He was jobless, have no economy. So that is very surprising for all people. How the authorities gave him the licenses.
Yeah, but do we know that he bought them? Do we know that he went to the shop to buy them? Do we know that or not? Do we have any receipt and any evidence that he bought them? What I want to say is that my father, for example, he was in charge of the whole Östergötland for the weapons. I didn't tell you. So, they have it in different places. And of course, I will not tell you where they have it because I'm a military daughter. But he was in charge of all the weapons. So what I'm thinking about is that he was working maybe for 15 years. Of course, he can save money, but still, you know, for 2 guns that cost £500,000 crowns.
No.
So first thing, we don't know if there is any evidence where he bought it. It can also be that, you know, he got the weapons maybe from someone. Maybe he was stealing it from some kind of place where they keep the weapons, because, you know, these are secret places, but people can find out about it, you know. So, I mean, to have 4 weapons, that's too much, you know. For me, it shows, you know, as a military daughter, and I'm also a peacemaker, because I'm also a trained mediator in conflict situations, working in prisons, and also training staff in prisons, and also working in prison as a teacher. So I have met people who have been in war, conflicts, and I know how people are working, and the criminals, you know, they have killed people, and they have also done the incest thing, you know. So I met this kind of people during many years when I was working in the prison. And I didn't have any problem in prison with anyone, because I know how to talk. But what is so important is that, you know, what is the problem in the Swedish society is a psychological problem. And usually they talk about the young man. He was still a young man, you know. So the young men who are not very talkative, who are not communicating too much, usually they get psychological problem. And for me, it's very obvious, with the small knowledge I have about this guy, that he has psychological problems. His strong point was that he was not successful. It looks like he was not successful about anything. He was also successful. He was only successful in buying this weapon or getting this weapon. He was successful in killing people, and he was also successful in committing suicide.
You know, there is another question that, what do you think? There are some anti-immigrant parties and elements. They are always going to do the propaganda against the immigrants and other things. Do you think this type of propaganda has resulted this incident?
Well, the thing is that, you know, this year or last year, I was even inviting you to the council hall, because I decided that I will go to the council hall to listen to the council meeting, the kommunfullmäktige. And in that meeting, one party, I don't want to point out any party, you can find it out yourself. Which party, it's easy to find it out. It's just to go on the internet and look for it. That party said, how many mosques are we going to build in Stockholm? That was the one question they put. And they also put another question, that the people who are working in the hemtjänst, they don't know enough Swedish. So then the Vanguard was having a very good response. She said that in Sweden we have freedom of religion. She didn't mention from what time, but I know it's approximately more or less from 1860. It was introduced by the Swedish Queen, Josephine, who was the granddaughter of Napoleon, who got married with the Swedish king. So she introduced it, because at that time, you know, even if you were a Catholic and Christian people are almost the same. It's not a big difference. They were not allowed to stay in Sweden. So she said in that respond to that party, and maybe we can think which party it was, but I don't want to mention it. You can look for it yourself. I don't want to point out any special party. So they say, how many mosques are we going to build in Stockholm? And then she said, we have freedom of religion, and this is something which is very important for us, and we will never back from that. Every person has a right to practice their religion, and we also have a freedom for not having any religion, if you don't believe in God or something. It was a very good answer. And then I replied on a mail to all the people in the council hall, wonderful that they have a church, a Christian church, next to the Catholic church in Stockholm, and next to that you have the synagogue, and next to that you have a mosque. So I wrote to them, it's a wonderful news. Concerning the Swedish, many of the students that came to this school in Risberga Gymnasium or Komvux, I'm not sure that all of them knew perfect Swedish, but they knew Swedish, and they wanted to have a second chance. Maybe they didn't, but maybe they were not successful in the primary school, maybe not in the high school, and then you can go to Komvux to get better grades. So, you know, the same party said that the people working with the old people in Sweden, they don't know enough Swedish. And I also respond in my mail to Vanguard about that.
So what do you think that the parties or groups which are always doing the propaganda against the immigration, against the immigrants. Did this result in this type of incident? Did they have?
Yeah.
Is there any impact?
Yeah. I see it and I hear it myself. We are getting more and more tired of one specific party who are just having the same questions. How many mosques? The immigrants don't know enough Swedish. There are so many questions about that.
I understand. Now we'll conclude all this discussion.
And it's mainly about Muslim people. And I also want to add that I was so happy to see people with other ethnicities. Like there are two people working for the Sustainable Party. They are from Järva. And they are from Africa. Maybe they're born here, but the parents are from Africa. And they also have Muslim names. Both of them have Muslim names. And I know that one of them, he got so many votes from the Järva, from people who are living there, because he's trying to take care about their problems. So now he's there, and they are very good in speaking. They are communicating very well. And I also see with my own eyes that other people working in the council, they appreciate these two guys, and they are from the left party,
That's good.
So that's nice.
Good to know.
So we have two Muslim people there, for example. So sad about this thing, because many of these people who were killed, they were supposed to help the old people to become undersköterska, auxiliary nurse. So that's also very, very sad, because we need all these people. Now I live in the center of Stockholm. I'm living in the best area in Stockholm. I can say it because it's just in the center of Stockholm. And when I see a foreign lady in the evening after a certain time, like after 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, then most of the time I know she's an undersköterska, she's auxiliary nurse. And most of the time they are also Muslims with the shawl. And that's okay now in Sweden to show your identity, So they are helping the old people who built up Sweden. Who worked very hard in their life, So that is one thing. They are the only ones around. Another thing also that I've seen is the people who are going by the mopeds and motorcycles, for the Volt and the Foodora and all, They are also mainly Muslim people working on times when nobody else wants to work, bringing the food for the people, Yes. So these are the people, the Muslim people, because you can recognize them by ethnicity and religion.
By names.
They are mostly the people who are around here in Kungsholmen, for example, in the center of Stockholm, doing the jobs that nobody else wants to do. And we need them so much for so many things.
Yeah. Good to know. Thank you very much for your time. And I hope the viewers will like our discussion or this interview. Please write your comments, your opinion in the comment box. So thank you very much, and keep watching.